population of Germany. I will add some more: 6,000,000 in Russia, 5,000,000 in Austria, 250,000 in the United States. I take them from memory. I read them in the Encyclopedia Britannica 10 or 12 years ago. Still, I am entirely sure of them. If those statistics are correct, my argument is not as strong as it ought to be as concerns America, but it still has strength. It is plenty strong enough as concerns Austria, for 10 years ago 5,000,000 was 9% of the Empire's population. The Irish would govern the kingdom of heaven if they had a strength there like that. I have some suspicions. I got them at second hand, but they have remained with me these 10 or 12 years. When I read in the E.B. that the Jewish population of the United States was 250,000, I wrote the editor and explained to him that I was personally acquainted with more Jews than that in my country, and that his figures were without a doubt a misprint for 25,000,000. I also added that I was personally acquainted with that many there, but that was only to raise his confidence in me, for it was not true. His answer miscarried, and I never got it. But I went around talking about the matter, and people told me they had reason to suspect that for business reasons many Jews whose dealings were mainly with the Christians did not report themselves as Jews in the census. It looked plausible. It looks plausible yet. Look at the city of New York, and look at Boston, and Philadelphia, and New Orleans, and Chicago, and Cincinnati, and San Francisco, how your race swarms in those places, and everywhere else in America, down to the least little village. Read the signs on the marts of commerce and on the shops: Goldstein, Goldstone, Edelstein, Precious Stone, Blumenthal, Flower Vale, Rosenthal, Rosevale, Veilchenduft, Violent Odor, Zinkvogel, Songbird, Rosenweich, Rosebranch, and all the amazing list of beautiful and enviable names which Prussia and Austria glorified you with so long ago. It is another instance of Europe's coarse and cruel persecution of your race. Not that it was coarse and cruel to outfit it with pretty and poetical names like those, but it was coarse and cruel to make it pay for them, or else take such hideous and often indecent names that today their owners never use them, or if they do, only on official papers. And it was the many, not the few, who got the odious names, they being too poor to bribe the officials to grant them better ones. Now why was the race renamed? I have been told that in Prussia it was given to using fictitious names and often changing them so as to beat the tax-gatherer, escape military service, and so on, and that finally the idea was hit upon of furnishing all the inmates of a house with one and the same surname, and then holding the house responsible right along for those inmates, and accountable for any disappearances that might occur. It made the Jews keep track of each other, for self-interest's sake, and saved the government the trouble. Note 4. In Austria the renaming was merely done because the Jews in some newly acquired regions had no surnames, but were mostly named Abraham and Moses, and therefore the tax-gatherer could tell t'other from which, and was likely to lose his reason over the matter. The renaming was put into the hands of the War Department, and a charming mess the graceless young lieutenants made of it. To them a Jew was of no sort of consequence, and they labeled the race in a way to make the angels weep. As an example, take these two: Abraham Bellyache and Shmuel God be damned, culled from Namensstudien by Karl Emil Franzos. End of note 4. If that explanation of how the Jews of Prussia came to be renamed is correct, if it is true that they fictitiously registered themselves to gain certain advantages, it may possibly be true that in America they refrained from registering themselves as Jews to fend off the damaging prejudices of the Christian customer. I have no way of knowing whether this notion is well founded or not. There may be other and better ways of explaining why only that poor little 250,000 of our Jews got into the encyclopedia. I may, of course, be mistaken, but I am strongly of the opinion that we have an immense Jewish population in America. Point number 3. Can Jews do anything to improve the situation? I think so. If I may make a suggestion without seeming to be trying to teach my grandmother to suck eggs, I will offer it. In our days we have learned the value of combination. We apply it everywhere, in railway systems, in trusts, in trade unions, in Salvation Armies, in minor politics, in major politics, in European concerts. Whatever our strength may be, big or little, we organize it. We have found out that that is the only way to get the most out of it that is in it. We know the weakness of individual sticks and the strength of the concentrated faggot. Suppose you try a scheme like this, for instance. In England and America, put every Jew on the census book as a Jew, in case you have not been doing that. Get up volunteer regiments composed of Jews solely, and when the drum beats, fall in and go to the front, so as to remove the reproach that you have few Massenas among you, and that you feed on a country but don't like to fight for it. Next, in politics, organize your strength, band together, and deliver the casting vote where you can, and, where you can't, compel as good terms as possible. You huddle to yourselves already in all countries, but you huddle to no sufficient purpose, politically speaking. You do not seem to be organized, except for your charities. There you are omnipotent. There you compel your due of recognition. You do not have to beg for it. It shows what you can do when you band together for a definite purpose. And then, from America and England, you can encourage your race in Austria, France, and Germany, and materially help it. It was a pathetic tale that was told by a poor Jew a fortnight ago during the riots, after he had been raided by the Christian peasantry and despoiled of everything he had. He said his vote was of no value to him, and he wished he could be excused from casting it, for indeed, casting it was a sure damage to him, since, no matter which party he voted for, the other party would come straight and take its revenge out of him. 9% of the population, these Jews, and apparently they cannot put a plank into any candidate's platform. If you will send our Irish lads over here, I think they will organize your race and change the aspect of the Reichsrat. You seem to think that the Jews take no hand in politics here, that they are absolutely non-participants. I am assured by men competent to speak that this is a very large error, that the Jews are exceedingly active in politics all over the empire, but that they scatter their work and their votes among the numerous parties, and thus lose the advantages to be had by concentration. I think that in America they scatter too, but you know more about that than I do. Speaking of concentration, Dr. Herzl has a clear insight into the value of that. Have you heard of his plan? He wishes to gather the Jews of the world together in Palestine, with a government of their own, under the suzerainty of the Sultan, I suppose. At the Convention of Bern last year, there were delegates from everywhere, and the proposal was received with decided favor. I am not the Sultan, and I am not objecting. But if that concentration of the cunningest brains in the world were going to be made in a free country, bar Scotland, I think it would be politic to stop it. It will not be well to let that race find out its strength. If the horses knew theirs, we should not ride any more. Point number 5. Will the persecution of the Jews ever come to an end? On the score of religion, I think it has already come to an end. On the score of race prejudice and trade, I have the idea that it will continue. That is, here and there in spots about the world where a barbarous ignorance and a sort of mere animal civilization prevail, but I do not think that elsewhere the Jew need now stand in any fear of being robbed and raided. Among the high civilizations he seems to be very comfortably situated indeed, and to have more than his proportionate share of the prosperities going. It has that look in Vienna. I suppose the race prejudice cannot be removed, but he can stand that. It is no particular matter. By his make and ways he is substantially a foreigner wherever he may be, and even the angels dislike a foreigner. I am using this word foreigner in the German sense, stranger. Nearly all of us have an antipathy to a stranger, even of our own nationality. We pile gripsacks in a vacant seat to keep him from getting in, and a dog goes further and does as a savage would, challenges him on the spot. The German dictionary seems to make no distinction between a stranger and a foreigner. In its view, a stranger is a foreigner, a sound position, I think. You will always be, by ways and habits and predilections, substantially strangers, foreigners, wherever you are, and that will probably keep the race prejudice against you alive. But you were the favorites of heaven originally, and your manifold and unfair